to the pursuit of truth. So a bit late on this one. I don't always get time to do these because of the twins, but the UAP hearing in the United States, I could not mention that. It's like the X-Files coming to life. It is interesting how this hearing was taking place in front of, I assume they're elected senators, whatever you call them in America. And they all seem to be taking it very seriously, and I was surprised about that. I thought there would be a lot more. I mean, there were some joking people there, but there was, and there wasn't very much negativity or attack of the subject. Only like at the end there was one or two like slightly difficult questions. Nothing that you'd expect. You'd expect there to be a lot of naysayers, a lot of well, this is all bunkum, all that kind of stuff. It was taken very seriously and very, credibly, and considering this, it includes a whistleblower. Obviously, one of them was, I think, a Navy and one of them was RAF, or maybe they both were pilots, I'm not sure, but one of them was the one who saw the Tic Tac, the famous one that everyone knows about now. I'm not sure how that ever got out, but obviously the when I'm reading online, the whistleblowing claims of David Grush are, said like that's not true. We don't have, because he claims that he's seen this huge UFO and they've got bits of what he likes to call non-human. He doesn't like to use the word alien because there's some speculation of when they changed the name to UAP, that it's maybe a phenomenon that's already been happening all the time, and it's just now that we've noticed it. Maybe there are these strange anomalies, energies or whatever that have always been there, that now, that people thought they were UFOs and, like aliens, but now it turns out maybe they're just a natural phenomena, or the breakdown of the ozone layer, I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting, and I don't know if it's credible now, like knowing truth and all this kind of stuff. I'm wondering, are they, like a lot of people think, is it going to be another COVID, another, thing to make us fear? Because why are they taking it so seriously? So yeah, I don't know, but I thought I couldn't not talk about it. I don't know whether I believe it or not now. I'd like to believe that there were other people out there. Maybe then that will make us all group together and actually work as human beings, and hopefully we don't fight aliens, and that's not going to be like space wars now. But I guess that's inevitable, isn't it? Because there's been no new, even when humans found other humans on the planet, even though they were exactly the same as them, they still waged war to take bits of land and all that kind of stuff. They still do it. So to think that that's not going to happen with an alien species, I guess that's, wow. And now they're going to be the same as us. Anyway, here's some of the highlights of from News Nation.
That historic UFO hearing on Capitol Hill today, as we just said, the bipartisan push for transparency, certainly decades in the making. The nation watched gripping testimony of UAPs, accusations of a government cover-up, calls for action, and demands for greater transparency on this issue. What are these unidentified objects? Where did they come from? And are we alone? Take a listen. Here are some of the key highlights from that hearing.
Finally, I'd like to thank these three brave witnesses here. They took an oath. They took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States, and dadgummit, they're doing it. And we owe them a debt of gratitude.
I have experienced advanced UAP firsthand, and I'm here to voice the concerns of more than 30 commercial aircrew and military veterans who have confided their similar encounters with me. Today, I would like to highlight three critical issues that demand our action. As we convene here, UAP are in our airspace, but they are grossly underreported. These sightings are not rare or isolated, they are routine. Military aircrew and commercial pilots, trained observers whose lives depend on accurate identification, are frequently witnessing these phenomena. The stigma attached to UAP is real and powerful and challenges national security. It silences commercial pilots who fear professional repercussions, discourages witnesses, and is only compounded by recent government claims questioning the credibility of eyewitness testimony. Parts of our government are aware of more about UAP than they let on. but excessive classification practices keep crucial information hidden. Since 2021, all UAP videos are classified as secret or above. This level of secrecy not only impedes our understanding, but fuels speculation and mistrust. In 2014, I was an F-18 Foxtrot pilot in the Navy Fighter Attack Squadron 11, the Red Rippers, and I was stationed at NAS Oceana in Virginia Beach. After upgrades were made to our jet's radar systems, we began detecting unknown objects operating in our airspace. At first, we assumed they were radar errors, but soon we began to correlate the radar tracks with multiple onboard sensors, including infrared systems, eventually through visual ID. During a training mission in Warning Area Whiskey 72, 10 miles off the coast of Virginia Beach, two F-18 Super Hornets were split by a UAP. The object, described as a dark gray or a black cube inside of a clear sphere, came within 50 feet of the lead aircraft and was estimated to be 5 to 15 feet in diameter. The mission commander terminated the flight immediately and returned to base. Our squadron submitted a safety report, but there was no official acknowledgement of the incident and no further mechanism to report the sightings. Soon, these encounters became so frequent that aircrew would discuss the risk of UAP as part of their regular pre-flight briefs. The majority of witnesses are commercial pilots at major airlines. Often, they are veterans with decades of flying experience. Pilots are reporting UAP at altitudes that appear above them at 40,000 feet, potentially in low Earth orbit or in the gray zone below the Kármán line, making inexplainable maneuvers like right-hand turns and retrograde orbits or J-hooks. If everyone could see the sensor and video data I witnessed, our national conversation would change. I urge us to put aside stigma and address the security and safety issue this topic represents. If UAP are foreign drones, it is an urgent national security problem. If it is something else, it is an issue for science.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple inspectors general, and in effect becoming a whistleblower. As you know, I've suffered retaliation for my decision, but I am hopeful that my actions will ultimately lead to a positive outcome of increased transparency.
The controller told us that these objects had been observed for over 2 weeks, coming down from over 80,000 feet, rapidly descending to 20,000 feet, hanging out for hours, and then going straight back up. For those who don't realize, above 80,000 feet is space. We arrived at the location at approximately 20,000 feet, and the controller called merge plot, which means that our radar blip was now in the same resolution cell as the contact. As we looked around, we noticed that we saw some whitewater off our right side. It's important to note that the weather on this day was as close to perfect as you could ask for off the coast of San Diego. Clear skies, light winds, calm seas, no whitecaps from waves. So the whitewater stood out in a large blue ocean. All four of us, because we were an F-18F, so we had pilots and Wizzo in the back seat, looked down a saw a white tic-tac object with a longitudinal axis pointing north-south and moving very abruptly over the water like a ping-pong ball. There were no rotors, no rotor wash, or any sign of visible control surfaces like wings. As we started clockwise towards the object, my Wizzo and I decided to go down and take a closer look with the other aircraft staying in high cover to observe both us and the tic-tac. We proceeded around the circle about 90 degrees from the start of our descent, and the object suddenly shifted its longitudinal axis, aligned it with my aircraft, and began to climb. We continued down another 270 degrees, nose low, where the tic-tac, or we consumed 270 degrees to where, and we went nose low to where the tic-tac would have been. Our altitude at this point was about 15,000 feet, and the tic-tac was about 12,000. As we pulled nose onto the object, within about a half mile of it, it rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. Our wingmen, roughly 8,000 feet above us, lost contact also. We immediately turned back to see where the whitewater was at, and it was gone also. So as we started to turn back towards the east, the controller came up and said, "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but that thing is at your cap point, roughly 60 miles away in less than a minute. You can calculate the speed." We returned to Nimitz. We were taking off our gear. We were talking to one of my crews that was getting ready to launch. We mentioned it to them, and they went out and luckily got the video that you see, that 90-second video. What you don't see is the radar tape that was never released, and we don't know where it's at, of the active jamming that the object put on an APG-73 radar.
He got the jump.
Sorry, that's the problem with using YouTube. Adverts. Oh, 2 adverts. So that was the tic-tac there. being described. Let's see if we can find any more. Because there were bits where they asked them about, does America have the actual bits of UFO or bits of aliens? And, you know, David Grouch, the whistleblower, for a whistleblower, he's quite like, well, I'm afraid I can't tell you that unless it's undisclosed and all that kind of stuff. There is a lot of that. He seems like very much like a lawyer. So that did make me question, you know, if you're going to whistleblow, then let's tell us all. But, yeah, let's see if we can find those bits.
Recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
So that's probably the biggest thing that came out of that, Crystal, non-human biologics. Now, okay, let's try and steelman the case, because I think that's always fun. That could mean anything, right? That could mean a rat, that could mean a dog, but it was clearly implied in the way that Dave Grush stated that as the UFO whistleblower testifying under oath, under penalty of perjury, having represented all of this not only to News Nation, but also entering it into the congressional record and also going through the whistleblower process to say that we have recovered alien craft. He refuses to say the word alien, or extraterrestrial. He just says non-human origin. That these not only there not only was a crash retrieval program, but that, quote, biologics were recovered then at the time. I mean, that's just one of the most stunning things that you really could say under oath before Congress in the UFO context. Obviously, it's salacious. It has a little bit of the giggle factor. It has a little bit of the movie factor, and seems so unbelievable. And of course, you know, extraordinary claims do also require extraordinary evidence. Mm-hmm. But I'm curious what you made of that, or if you have any questions or anything.
I mean, it was just wild to watch members of Congress seriously asking these questions. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was wild to see. It is a remarkable development that this is being treated with the gravity that it is at this point. And I think, obviously, the turning point was when some of these videos were released and it just became undeniable. And Congress has clearly become...
You find the actual bits rather than them debating it.
What?
I don't know what this is. Breaking point with Crystal.
Of you crap.
This looks like it's just them talking. I need actual bits. Here's David Grouch's opening statement. Maybe there'll be something in here.
Mr. Chairman, ranking members and congressmen, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is an important issue, and I'm grateful for your time. My name is David Charles Grush. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years, both in the U.S. Air Force, both active duty, Air National Guard, and Reserve, at the rank of major, and most recently from 2021 to 2023, at the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, NGA, at the GS-15 civilian level, which is the military equivalent of a full bird colonel. I was my agency's co-lead in unidentified anomalous phenomena and transmedium object analysis, as well as reporting to the UAP task force, UAPTF, and eventually, once it was established, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, ARROW. I became a whistleblower through a PPD-19 urgent concern filing in May 2022 with the Intelligence Community Inspector General. Following concerning reports from multiple esteemed and credentialed current and former military and intelligence community individuals that the U.S. government is operating with secrecy above congressional oversight with regards to UAPs. My testimony is based on information I've been given by individuals with a long-standing track record of legitimacy and service to this country, many of whom also have shared compelling evidence in the form of photography, official documentation, and classified oral testimony to myself and my various colleagues. I have taken every step I can to corroborate this evidence over a period of 4 years while I was with the UAP task force and do my due diligence on the individual sharing it. This is because of these steps, I believe strongly in the importance of bringing this information before you. I am driven by a commitment of both to truth and transparency, rooted in our inherent duty to uphold the United States Constitution and protect the American people. I'm asking Congress to hold our government to this standard and thoroughly investigate these claims. But as I stand here under oath now, I am speaking to the facts as I've been told them. In the U.S. Air Force, in my National Reconnaissance Office, NRO, reservist capacity, I was a member of the UAP task force from 2019 to 2021. I served at the NRO Operations Center on the director's briefing staff, which included the coordination of the Presidential Daily Brief and supporting variety of contingency operations, which I was the Reserve Intelligence Division Chief backup. In 2019, the UAP Task Force Director asked me to identify all special access programs and controlled access programs, also known as SAPs and CAPs, we needed to satisfy our congressionally mandated mission, and we were direct report at the time to the DepSecDef. At the time, due to my extensive executive level intelligence support duties, I was cleared to literally all relevant compartments and in a position of extreme trust, both in my military and civilian capacities. I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program, to which I was denied access to those additional read-ons when I requested it. I made the decision, based on the data I collected, to report this information to my superiors and multiple...
Carrying on from where we went. We already had that bit. No more. NASA reveals UFO sighting in Middle East in first ever public... I never heard this one. 2 months ago in the Daily Mail, this one. NASA. I wonder if the 2025 is the... He made a mistake on that. Is he giving away when it's going to happen? What's NASA?
Hi. We've gone through a preliminary data collection stage. And to summarize some of the things that we've learned, the current data collection efforts regarding UAPs are unsystematic and fragmented across various agencies, often using instruments uncalibrated for scientific data collection. Balloons recently, that data is classified. And that's because of a desire to not reveal the current existing data and eyewitness reports alone are insufficient to provide conclusive evidence about the nature and origin of every UAP event. They're often uninformative due to lack of quality control and data curation. To understand UAP better, targeted data collection, thorough data curation, and robust analyses are needed. Such an approach will help to discern unexplained UAP sightings, but even then, there's no guarantee that all sightings will be explained.
For convening today's UAP independent study public meeting and inviting me to continue to participate. I also emphasized to Congress that only a very small percentage of UAP reports display signatures that could reasonably be described as anomalous. The majority of unidentified objects reported to AARO and in our holdings demonstrate mundane characteristics of readily explainable sources. While a large number of cases in AARO's holdings remain technically unresolved, this is primarily due to a lack of data associated with those cases. Without sufficient data, we are unable to reach defendable conclusions that meet the high scientific standards we set for resolution. Meanwhile, for the few objects that do demonstrate potentially anomalous characteristics, AARO is approaching these cases with the highest level of objectivity and analytic rigor. This includes physical testing and employing modeling and simulation to validate our analyses and the underlying theories, and then peer reviewing those results before reaching any conclusions. This is an example of one that I showed at the hearing recently. This is a spherical orb, metallic, in the Middle East, 2022, by an MQ-9. I will come back to the sensor question that David raised here in a moment. This is a typical example of the thing that we see most of. We see these all over the world, and we see these in making very interesting apparent maneuvers. This one in particular, however, I would point out, demonstrated no enigmatic technical capabilities and was no threat to airborne safety. While we are still looking at it, I don't have any more data other than that. This is a newly released video. You'll notice there are 2 dots moving back and forth. There is a plane at the bottom that's moving across the screen, and now there are 3 dots moving back and forth. The moving back and forth is from the sensor and the platform that's collecting it. This is a P3 on a training mission in the western United States. They picked these up and they tried to intercept and was unable to intercept them. The reason they couldn't catch them is because after further analysis, it was shown that those objects were actually much farther away from the P3 than they thought. And in fact, when we went even deeper, looked at air traffic control data, we were able to match those to aircraft on a major flight corridor heading into a major airport for landing. This is the kind of thing that can spoof and or provide misperception of both very highly trained pilots as well as sensors.
Anomalous characteristics. What numbers are we talking about? How big is your data?
At the time of my open hearing, we were at 650 cases-ish. We are now over 800 analytics when we report out. But the numbers I would say that we see are possibly really anomalous are less than single-digit percentages of that total database. So maybe 2 to 5-ish%.
That it is really disheartening to hear of the harassment that our panelists have faced online, all because they're studying this topic. NASA stands behind our panelists and we do not tolerate abuse. Harassment only leads to further stigmatization of the UAP field, significantly hindering the scientific progress and discouraging others to study this important subject matter.
It's funny NASA should be saying that after I suspect they've whenever people used to talk about UFOs before, the government will always here's another one coming. The government and etc. have always been, causing harassment to people with, when they talk about UFOs and all these sort of unusual things, and now they're saying, please don't make it about us now that we're actually studying it because we're serious. There's another one.
Activity by alien or non-human technology and or beings that has caused harm to humans.
I can't get into the specifics in an open environment, but at least the activity that I personally witnessed, and I have to be very careful here because they tell you never to acknowledge tradecraft, right? So what I personally witnessed myself and my wife was very disturbing.
I don't know, is there any more? I think that's all I'm going to get from these little bits. Oh, here's about the pilots. The USA Today. That last
I believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier. Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?
The specific documentation I would have to talk to you in a skiff about.
See, there was all this talk about, I can't really talk about things. But yeah, there you go. So, is it real or not? Who knows? Stay tuned, I guess. Take care. Take it easy. God bless. And peace.